I met Maddox Hayes for the first time on the night I got fired. That sounds like the opening of a romantic story. But trust me, at the time I hated him. Completely. My name is Rowan Walker, 21 years old. A junior studying economics at a university in Boston. During the day I studied. At night I worked as a server at an upscale restaurant near the financial district. I didn't come from money. My mom was an elementary school teacher. My dad was a car mechanic. Since my freshman year, I had been covering most of my own living expenses. I was always proud of that, until the night everything fell apart. It was a Saturday evening. The restaurant was fully booked. So many guests the staff could barely keep up. I had been working nearly 10 hours straight. My feet ached. My head was spinning. I just wanted to finish my shift and get back to the dorm. Around 9 o'clock, the manager suddenly rushed over. Rowan. Yes. VIP guest. Okay. Private room on the 3rd floor. Understood. Don't make any mistakes. I hear that every single day. He glared at me. I shrugged, picked up the drink tray, and headed upstairs. When I opened the door to the private room, I didn't even bother to look at who the VIP was, until I heard a voice. I don't think I need more bodyguards. That voice was far too familiar. I looked up, and nearly dropped the entire tray of wine. Maddox Hayes, the man who had been everywhere for the past 2 years. The most famous young star in America. The lead of the blockbuster film that had just shattered box office records. The man with millions of fans. The man every girl at my school had once gone crazy over. Even a few guys too, including me, at least before. Back in high school. Before I grew up and realized celebrities had nothing to do with my life. I set the wine glass down on the table. Maddox looked up. Our eyes met. 1 second. 2 seconds. 3 seconds. Then the worst thing happened. Another staff member accidentally bumped into me from behind. The tray tilted sharply. The red wine poured straight down onto Maddox's white shirt. The entire room went dead silent. So did I. The manager standing behind me went pale. A bodyguard stepped forward. I stared at the spreading red stain on a shirt that probably cost 3 months of my rent. Only one thought came to mind. I'm done. Damn it. I muttered. The manager nearly shouted. Rowan. I hadn't even gotten a chance to apologize. Hadn't gotten a chance to explain. He had already turned to Maddox, bowing repeatedly. I sincerely apologize, Mr. Hayes. This was entirely our staff member's fault. I am so very sorry. I stood there, frozen, like an idiot. The strange thing was Maddox wasn't angry at all. He looked at his shirt, then looked at me, and then he laughed. Actually laughed. I'm fine. Everyone in the room looked bewildered. Pardon, sir? I said I'm fine. Maddox reached for a napkin and dabbed at his shirt. Nobody did it on purpose. The manager was still pale. But less than 10 minutes later, I was called down to the office. And fired. On the spot. No warning. No chance to explain. No chance to come back. I walked out of the restaurant with my backpack over my shoulder. Outside, snow was falling. Late winter in Boston was cold enough to cut through skin. I stood on the side of the road, watching the stream of cars pass by. Anger rising in me, little by little. I knew Maddox hadn't done anything wrong. But if he hadn't been there that night, if he hadn't been the VIP guest, maybe I wouldn't have lost my job. Right then, a black SUV pulled up in front of me. The window rolled down. Maddox Hayes sat inside. My eyes went wide. Are you kidding me? He frowned. What? I just lost my job. I know. Then why are you here? Maddox looked at me for a few seconds. He didn't seem used to being spoken to like that. Honestly, neither was I, but I was too angry to care. I wanted to apologize. You didn't do anything wrong. But I feel responsible. Well, congratulations. He laughed. That only made me more irritated. I just lost my job. I know. I don't find that funny. Neither do I. Then what are you laughing at? Because you're the first person who's dared to get angry with me in months. I was speechless. Maddox rested his arm on the car door. blue eyes looking straight at me. Rowan. I stopped. I never told you my name. I looked at your name tag. I have a proposition. I don't want an autograph. That's not it. I don't want a photo. Still not it. Then what? He smiled. A dangerously casual smile. I need a part-time assistant. I blinked. Excuse me? A personal assistant. I don't know how to do that. I'll train you. I'm in college. I know. I have class. I'll work around your schedule. I stared at him like he'd just walked into a wall. You're recruiting someone off the street right now? Only you, specifically. Why? This time Maddox went quiet. He looked at me a little longer than before, then said something I would still remember clearly many years later. Because for the first time in a very long time, I've met someone who looks at me like a regular person. I didn't know how to respond. The snow kept falling. Cold wind swept through the street. On one side, the familiar life I had built was crumbling. On the other, a door leading somewhere completely unknown. I had no idea then that the decision to step into that car would change the entire course of my life. Not just because of the job, but because of the man sitting inside. The man who would later become the most beautiful secret of my youth. I should have said no. A reasonable person probably would have. A college student who needed money might have thought it over more carefully. And me? I got in the car after exactly 3 minutes of arguing with myself. To this day, I still don't know if that was a smart decision or a reckless one. Maybe both. The inside of the car was warm enough that the numbing cold slowly left my fingers. Maddox sat across from me. The wine-stained shirt had been replaced with a simple black sweater. No stage lights. No cameras. No makeup team. It was the first time I'd seen him up close like this. And it was deeply annoying to admit that he was significantly more handsome in person than on screen. I still think this is a crazy idea, I said. Maddox laughed. I hear that a lot. I mean about hiring someone. I know. You don't even know anything about me. I know your name. That's it. I know you're not pretending to like me. I crossed my arms. That's not enough basis for hiring someone. For me it is. I shook my head. Famous people were strange. At least the one sitting in front of me was. The car stopped in front of a high-end building near the Charles River. I looked out the window. This is your place? Yeah. You live alone? Most of the time. I followed him inside. The apartment was so spacious it felt like stepping into a luxury hotel. Floor-to-ceiling glass windows. An open living room. Soft warm light. Everything immaculate. But what surprised me most was the silence. No party. No models. No crowd, nothing like what the tabloids always wrote about. Just the two of us. Have a seat. Maddox handed me a glass of water. I took it. Thank you. Let's talk about the job. Is there actually a job? He laughed. You think I'm joking? I'm still not sure. Maddox sat down across from me. I'm shooting a new film. I heard. Of course you did. You're everywhere. The good news is I'm no longer appearing in your dreams. I nearly choked on my water. He laughed loudly. Look at your face. I was a fan when I was 16. Oh, don't get smug. Too late. I had to work hard not to laugh along. The more we talked, the more I realized Maddox was nothing like the cold image he projected in the media. He was playful, blunt, and occasionally a little childish. So what exactly is the job? I asked. Managing my schedule. I've never done that. I'll show you. What else? Remind me to eat. Remind me to sleep. Remind me to rest. I stared at him. Are you hiring an assistant or a mother? Maddox laughed so hard he had to duck his head. See what? That's exactly why I want to hire you. I just insulted you. Precisely. I don't follow. The smile on his face softened. For the first time that evening, his eyes turned serious. Because everyone treats me like a product. I went quiet. My management company. My sponsors. The directors. The journalists. The fans. Even my friends sometimes. He leaned back in his chair. Tired. genuinely tired. I just want someone who's honest with me. The room fell silent. I didn't know how to respond, because in that moment, Maddox no longer resembled a famous star. He just looked like a 23-year-old who was completely drained, a young man far lonelier than I had ever imagined. Finally, I asked, "What's the pay?" He burst out laughing. "I knew you'd ask that. I'm a college student. $8,000 a month." I shot to my feet. "What? Too little? You're paying me just to manage your calendar. I'm rich. That's not the point. I'm also very busy. Still doesn't add up. I like things to add up in my own way." I sat back down. My mind was completely scrambled. $8,000. I had worked as a server for nearly a year to earn that. And he said it like pocket change. "Are you seriously serious?" I asked quietly. Maddox nodded. "Dead serious. And if I say no?" He shrugged. "I'll find someone else." "That sounds more reasonable. But I'll be disappointed." I looked at him. He looked at me. For a few seconds, neither of us said anything. For some reason, my heart beat a little faster. Maybe because of that look in his eyes. Or maybe because for the first time in my life, I felt like someone genuinely needed me. Even if that someone was the most famous star in America. "I need to think about it," I finally said. "Okay. I'm not promising anything. I know. I still think you're out of your mind. That's not exactly news." I laughed, and for the first time since getting fired, my mood lifted just a little. I didn't know what was coming next, but one thing was very clear. The ordinary life of Rowan Walker had just veered off onto an entirely different road. And somewhere deep down, I had a feeling that Maddox Hayes would be more than just my employer. He would become a significant part of a story I hadn't yet begun to write. 3 days later, I signed the contract as Maddox Hayes' part-time personal assistant. Looking back now, that decision still seems completely mad. But college tuition doesn't pay itself. Neither does rent. And $8,000 a month is terrifyingly persuasive. The first workday started at 6 in the morning. 6 a.m. During the short break between semesters, I hated everything, especially the phone vibrating relentlessly on my nightstand. I reached over and answered it. "Hello. Good morning." Maddox's voice came through, full of energy. I looked at the clock, then stared at the ceiling. "I hate you." Not the greeting I was hoping for. "It's only 6. I have to be on set by 7. "Well, good luck with that." "Rowan." "What?" "I'm paying you." "Get out of bed." I hung up, then buried my face in the pillow for another 3 minutes, then finally dragged myself up. The film set was on the outskirts of Boston. It was my first time seeing a professional film crew in person. Trucks, equipment, cameras, hundreds of people rushing back and forth. Chaos that somehow operated with the precision of a massive machine. The moment I walked in, someone called my name. "Rowan." Maddox was standing a few meters away. Long coat, hair styled, light makeup, unreasonably handsome. I hated having to admit that. "Have you had coffee yet?" I asked. "Not yet." "Why?" "Waiting for you to get it." "Am I your assistant or your delivery person?" "Right now, you're the coffee person." I shot him a look. Maddox grinned with great satisfaction. Unfortunately, he seemed to thoroughly enjoy getting a rise out of me. The first week passed faster than I expected. I gradually settled into the work, organizing his schedule, handling simple emails, reminding Maddox to eat, reminding him to sleep, and occasionally having to wrestle his phone away from him at 2 in the morning. "You need to rest." "I'm reading the script." "You've been reading for 3 hours. Just one more chapter." "No." "Rowan." "No." "Rowan." "No." "You're so cruel." "I'll take that as a compliment." Exchanges like that happened nearly every day. The strange thing was, I started enjoying this job. Not because of the money, but because of Maddox. Not in a romantic way. At least that's what I thought at the time. I just felt at ease around him. He made everything feel lighter, easier to breathe, fun. things my pressure-filled student life rarely gave me. One afternoon at the end of March, I was sitting in the university library, surrounded by dozens of students studying. I should have been studying too, but my phone suddenly buzzed. Maddox's name on the screen.
I'm studying.
I answered immediately. I know. Then why are you calling? I'm in trouble. I sat up straight. What happened? A dog. I went quiet for a moment. A dog? Yeah. Maddox. Yeah. I'm about to hang up. Wait. I heard barking on his end. Then his voice again. I was shooting outside at a park today, and this dog just started following me. So, I think it likes me. Congratulations. But now it won't leave. I closed my eyes, wondering if this was really my life. What do I do? Maddox asked. I don't know. It's staring at me. Stare back. I am staring. Then you two just keep staring at each other. Rowan.
I'm Busse.
It's really cute. I don't care. Really? Really? 30 minutes later, I was standing in the middle of a park, looking at Maddox, then at the dog, then back at Maddox. I hate you. I know. A small golden dog was curled up in his lap, tail wagging happily. You called me away from campus for this? I needed expert advice. I study economics. That's still expertise. I laughed despite myself. We ended up bringing the dog to an animal rescue center. On the way there, Maddox looked visibly sad. I thought you didn't like dogs. I said, I've never owned one. Then why do you look sad? He looked out the window. Because it trusted me. I paused. That was very Maddox. Sounding simple on the surface, but always carrying something deeper underneath. The months that followed passed with frightening speed. Spring turned to summer. The nature of things between us shifted too. No longer quite like employer and assistant. Not exactly friends either. It was something in between. A natural closeness. As though we'd known each other for a long time. Maddox started showing up on my campus. At first just occasionally. Then more and more often. One day I walked out of class and found him already there waiting. Cap pulled low. Sunglasses on. Attempting a disguise. Still standing out like a moving billboard. Done? He asked. What are you doing here? Waiting for you. Why?
I'm hungry.
Let's go eat. I have homework.
I'm paying.
I'm going right now. Maddox burst out laughing. That evening, we sat on the rooftop terrace of a small restaurant overlooking the city. A warm summer breeze drifting through. City lights stretching out below. Boston looked more beautiful than usual. Or maybe my mood was better than usual. Rowan. Maddox called. If you hadn't met me, what would your life look like? I thought about it for a moment. Probably still working at a restaurant. Most likely. Still in college. Yeah. Still stressed about money. Definitely. He laughed. I looked over at him. What about you? If you hadn't met me? Yeah. Maddox went quiet. Longer than I expected. Then he said very softly, I'd probably still think no one was ever truly honest with me. My heart lurched. Without warning. Without reason. Just from those words. I turned away and took a sip of water. Trying to look normal. But for the first time, a strange thought surfaced in my mind. A thought that unsettled me a little. Because I was beginning to realize that what I felt toward Maddox might not be simple friendship anymore. Took me nearly 2 weeks to admit the truth to myself. And they were 2 absolutely terrible weeks. Because once you realize you like someone, you start noticing everything. Every glance. Every smile. Every accidental touch. Every message. And unfortunately for me, Maddox appeared in my life nearly every day. Why are you staring at me? Maddox suddenly asked. I nearly dropped my laptop. What? You were just staring at me. No, I wasn't. Yes, you were.
No.
Yes. I hate you. I know. He smiled. I looked away, my heart beating in an annoyingly rapid way. We were in his apartment at the time. Maddox sitting on the sofa reading a script. Me pretending to work on economics homework. Pretending very poorly. Because every 5 minutes I glanced over at him. The embarrassing part was that Maddox noticed all of it. I had never liked a guy before. At least I didn't think I had. I dated a few girls in high school. None of it lasted more than a few months. I always figured I just hadn't found the right person. Until Maddox came along. And dismantled my entire system of logic. One night, I was lying in my dorm room, staring at the ceiling. My phone lit up. A message from Maddox. Can't sleep. I checked the time. 1:47 in the morning. I replied, go to sleep. A second later, I'm trying. Keep trying. You're heartless. I know. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then appeared again. Finally he sent, do you think you'll ever really fall in love with someone? I sat up, heart hammering, 10 fingers hovering over the keyboard, not sure how to answer. After almost a minute, I typed, yes. Maddox replied almost immediately, I'm not sure I will. Why? Trust is hard. I stared at that line for a long time, then asked, who hurt you? This time he didn't answer right away. Nearly 5 minutes passed. I think being famous has hurt me more than any person ever could. I didn't know what to say, because that answer sent a quiet ache through my chest. In the end I just sent, go to sleep. A minute later, good night, Rowan. Good night. I put the phone down, but I didn't sleep that night. Summer ended. A new school year began. I entered my final year of college. The workload increased considerably. Maddox was busier too. He was constantly moving between Boston, New York, and Los Angeles. Some weeks we only saw each other once. Some weeks not at all. And it was during that time that I realized just how much I missed him. I missed our ridiculous arguments. Missed the sound of his laugh. Missed the way he always said my name in that particular tone of his. Missed his presence. That was frightening. Because every 5 minutes I glanced over at him. The embarrassing part was that Maddox noticed all of it. I had never liked a guy before. At least I didn't think I had. I dated a few girls in high school. None of it lasted more than a few months. I always figured I just hadn't found the right person. Until Maddox came along. And dismantled my entire system of logic. One night, I was lying in my dorm room, staring at the ceiling. My phone lit up. A message from Maddox. Can't sleep. I checked the time. 1:47 in the morning. I replied, go to sleep. A second later, I'm trying. Keep trying. You're heartless. I know. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then appeared again. Finally he sent, do you think you'll ever really fall in love with someone? I sat up, heart hammering, 10 fingers hovering over the keyboard, not sure how to answer. After almost a minute, I typed, yes. Maddox replied almost immediately, I'm not sure I will. Why? Trust is hard. I stared at that line for a long time, then asked, who hurt you? This time he didn't answer right away. Nearly 5 minutes passed. I think being famous has hurt me more than any person ever could. I didn't know what to say, because that answer sent a quiet ache through my chest. In the end I just sent, go to sleep. A minute later, good night, Rowan. Good night. I put the phone down, but I didn't sleep that night. Summer ended. A new school year began. I entered my final year of college. The workload increased considerably. Maddox was busier too. He was constantly moving between Boston, New York, and Los Angeles. Some weeks we only saw each other once. Some weeks not at all. And it was during that time that I realized just how much I missed him. I missed our ridiculous arguments. Missed the sound of his laugh. Missed the way he always said my name in that particular tone of his. Missed his presence. That was frightening. Because the feelings kept growing. And I had no idea what to do with them. One evening at the end of September, I was studying in the library when I got a call from Maddox. His voice sounded strange. Rowan. Yeah. Where are you? The library. I'm outside. I stood up instantly. Outside where? Outside the library. I ran downstairs immediately. When I stepped out, I saw him. Maddox was standing under a street lamp. Black coat, hands in his pockets, hair slightly tousled from the wind. But what caught my attention most was his expression. Exhausted, deeply exhausted. "I thought you were in New York. Just got back. Is something wrong?" He was quiet for a moment, then asked, "Can we walk for a bit?" I nodded, without asking anything more. We walked along the riverbank path. The air was growing cold. Yellow leaves covered the ground. Boston was slipping into autumn. Maddox walked beside me, mostly silent the entire way, until he suddenly spoke. "I just broke up with someone." I stopped. Something inside me dropped. Oh, that was all I could manage. Because I hadn't known he was seeing anyone. Or maybe I'd never thought to ask. "She's a good person," he continued. "I just didn't love her enough." I kept my voice steady. "That happens." "Yeah." We kept walking. I hated the feeling in my chest right then. Part of me aching because he had belonged to someone else. Part of me relieved that it was over. That made me feel selfish. "I think there's something wrong with me," Maddox said. I looked over at him. "Why?" "Because I've never loved anyone the way people always describe it. Love doesn't feel the same for everyone." "Maybe." He gave a quiet, hollow laugh. "I always feel like I'm searching for something." "For what?" This time he looked directly at me. A gaze that lingered a beat longer than usual. Enough to make my heart stutter. "I don't know," he said softly. That night, back at the dorm, I could barely focus on anything. My mind was full of nothing but Maddox. That look, that voice, the closeness when we stood next to each other, near enough that I could feel the warmth of him. I opened my laptop, meant to study, but sat motionless instead, because I knew I was standing at a dangerous crossroads. I was in love with Maddox. No more denying it. Not a crush, not admiration, not friendship, but real love. Love between one young man and another. The only thing I didn't know was whether Maddox had ever looked at me that same way. And that was the thing that frightened me most. Some secrets only grow larger the harder you try to keep them. The feelings I had for Maddox were exactly that kind of secret. I didn't tell my friends. Didn't tell my family. Didn't tell anyone. I kept it inside for months. Every morning reminding myself that Maddox was a friend. An employer. A celebrity. Someone who had no business appearing in my dreams. But the heart doesn't care about logic. November arrived with its first cold winds of the season. The university entered its most stressful stretch of the semester. Assignments, presentations, exams. I practically lived in the library. Some days I studied until 2 in the morning, then dragged myself to class the next day. Maddox even started reminding me to rest, which was absurd, since my job was supposed to be managing his schedule. But somewhere along the way, we had started taking care of each other. "Rowan. How many hours did you sleep last night?" Maddox asked over the phone. 4. "That's not okay. I'm still alive. That's not the standard. I have an exam. You need sleep. I need to graduate. And I need you to not pass out in the street." I laughed. His nagging always made me feel better. "Anyway, thank you." There was a brief silence on the other end. Then Maddox said quietly, "I worry about you all the time." My heart skipped. Just one beat, but enough to silence me. Luckily, he changed the subject right after. If he hadn't, I don't know what I would have said. Late November, Maddox invited me to Los Angeles. The film crew was shooting the final scenes. "I can't," I said. "Why?" "I have class. It's the weekend. I need to study." "You study every day already." "I like studying." "Rowan." "What?" "You just lied." I laughed. The truth was I wanted to go. Very much. But being around Maddox too much sometimes made everything harder. The feelings inside me weren't getting smaller. They were getting larger. More dangerous. Still, in the end I got on the plane. Because saying no to Maddox was one of the hardest things in the world. Los Angeles was nothing like Boston. Golden sunlight. Blue sky. Warm air. The moment I stepped out of the airport, Maddox was already there waiting. Cap pulled low, dark glasses on, still conspicuous enough that people kept turning to look. He spread his arms wide. "Welcome to California. I'm already regretting this. I missed you, you know?" I stopped in my tracks. Thankfully, Maddox said it the way he said most things. Casually, naturally, like it carried no particular weight. Only I had to work at staying composed. 2 days later, the crew organized a small wrap party to celebrate the end of filming. I would normally have avoided somewhere so crowded, but Maddox dragged me along. "You need to socialize. I need to go back to the hotel. You're old before your time. I'm 22. In spirit, 70. I shot him a look. He smiled, and so I got dragged to the party. Music filled the villa. People drinking, talking, laughing. I found a spot at the corner of the rooftop terrace and watched the city light up in the distance. That was my favorite kind of place. Quiet, open, left alone, until a girl walked over. "Mind if I sit here?" I shook my head. She looked about 25. Beautiful, confident. One of the supporting actresses in the film. We talked for a few minutes. Pleasant enough. Until she suddenly asked, "You have feelings for Maddox, don't you?" I nearly dropped my glass. "What?" She laughed. "Relax. I have no idea what you're talking about." "You sure?" I went silent. She rested her chin on her hand and studied me. "Your eyes give everything away." My heart started pounding. "I think you've got the wrong idea." "I don't." Her voice was gentle, but certain. "I'm an actress. My job is to observe people." I had nothing to say to that. Thankfully, she didn't press further. Just smiled. "Don't worry. I won't tell anyone." Then she stood up and walked away, leaving me sitting there, frozen. For the first time in months, I realized my feelings might not be as hidden as I'd thought. That night, I barely slept. The next morning, I decided to take a walk alone. Malibu Beach at dawn was nearly deserted. Waves rolling in steady rhythm. A wind carrying the salt of the sea. I walked along the shore, my mind a mess. Maybe I should pull back from Maddox for a while. Maybe that was the right choice. Maybe, Rowan. I startled and turned around. Maddox was jogging toward me. Gray hoodie, hair blown loose by the wind. "What are you doing here?" "Looking for you." "Why?" "You disappeared." "I just went for a walk." He exhaled slowly, then stood beside me and looked out at the sea. Neither of us spoke. A few minutes passed. Then Maddox suddenly asked, "Did I do something wrong?" I turned to him. "What?" "You've been avoiding me lately." My heart sank. He knew. Of course he knew. Maddox always paid far more attention to me than I realized. "I haven't been," I said. "Rowan. Honestly. Look at me." I reluctantly met his eyes. His gaze was so serious there was nowhere to hide. "Tell me the truth." I swallowed, wanting so badly to say everything, to confess it all, to free myself from the secret I'd been carrying for months. But in the end, I didn't have the courage. "I'm just a little tired." Maddox held my gaze for a long moment, as though trying to read my thoughts. Then he gave a quiet nod. "Okay." I knew he didn't fully believe me, but he didn't push further, which left me feeling both grateful and guilty, because for the first time since we'd met, I was hiding something from him, something important, something that could change everything.